But one of the things that's said at the end of the story that I think people miss on a regular basis, it says that David took the head of Goliath and he took it to Jerusalem. That's just one of those things that you just sort of miss sometimes when you're reading. You can go look at it. It's there. I'm not making this up.
Could the biblical giant Goliath have truly walked the earth? In a discovery stirring both excitement and debate, a team of archaeologists claims to have unearthed what may be the skull of Goliath in Israel. Found near the ancient city of Gath, Goliath's supposed hometown, the find has reignited interest in one of the most famous battles ever told. Today we're taking a closer look into this controversial claim, what researchers have actually found, and how it connects or doesn't to the famous story of David and Goliath. The discovery near Gath. The skull was reportedly found near es-Safi, widely accepted by scholars as the site of ancient Gath. This Philistine city is named in the Bible as the home of Goliath, the warrior slain by David with a single stone. The archaeological team working in the region uncovered a large human skull alongside oversized bones and fragments of weaponry buried in a layer of sediment dating back to the Iron Age. The team has remained cautious in confirming its identity, but described the remains as, quote, unusually large for the time period. While the size alone stirred early headlines, the location has drawn the strongest connection to the biblical figure. Excavations in the area have already revealed Philistine temples, pottery, and inscriptions linking to the era described in 1 Samuel. For researchers, the proximity to Gath adds historical weight to the find, even if it doesn't yet prove who the remains belonged to. The Goliath inscription and other clues. Long before this recent skull was found, archaeologists uncovered an inscription at Tel es-Safi that included 2 names, Alt and Wult. Both are linguistically similar to the Hebrew name for Goliath, and the inscription dates back roughly to the same period as the events described in the David and Goliath story. While the names don't confirm the existence of a single biblical figure, they do establish that such names were in use among Philistines of the time. The discovery of the skull near this same area adds another layer to the puzzle. Still, researchers have stressed that there's no DNA evidence, no inscriptions on the bones, and no definitive proof linking the skull to the biblical warrior. Some see the coincidence of name, location, and size as compelling. Others view it as a mix of hope, hype, and half-formed conclusions. Faith, folklore, and skepticism.
And the shepherd draws closer and closer, and the giant sees that he's carrying a staff. That's all he's carrying, right? Instead of a weapon, just this shepherd's staff. And he says, he's insulted. Am I a dog that you would come to me with sticks, right? And the shepherd boy takes one of his stones out of his pocket, puts it in his sling, and whirls it around and lets it fly, and it hits the giant right between the eyes, like right here in his most vulnerable spot. And he falls down either dead or unconscious, and the shepherd boy runs up and takes his sword and cuts off his head.
David and Goliath is one of the most well-known accounts in the Bible. For many believers, the idea that Goliath's remains could be found at all feels like validation of Scripture. Some Christian groups and creationist websites quickly promoted the find, suggesting it offered proof of the Bible's historical accuracy. One article even claimed that Goliath's body had been fully unearthed, though this was not supported by any peer-reviewed data or verified statements from the actual dig team. Skeptics have been quick to push back, noting the lack of scientific evidence and the tendency of fringe groups to exaggerate or fabricate claims to support religious narratives. The size of the bones alone isn't enough to confirm identity, and experts warn that the human imagination often fills in gaps when a story is already familiar. Misinterpretations and Misinformation. Much of the public conversation around this discovery has been shaped by viral articles and misleading headlines. A piece published by IFL Science pointed out that one of the popular claims, that Goliath's entire body had been found in Israel, was not supported by any actual scientific team. The article mocked the idea, noting that even if a tall skeleton were found, that wouldn't prove it belonged to a specific biblical character. Other media outlets confused satire, speculation, and scholarship, making it difficult for casual readers to separate fact from fiction. The archaeologists working at Tel es-Safi have issued cautious statements urging people not to jump to conclusions. As of now, the only confirmed discovery is a large human skull found in the right place and from the right time period, but without definitive evidence, the leap from Philistine warrior to Goliath remains wide. the science behind the skull. Experts analyzing the skull have confirmed that it does appear to be from a male who lived during the Iron Age, roughly between the 10th and 9th centuries BCE. Preliminary measurements suggest the individual was significantly taller than the average man of that period, whose height ranged typically from 5'3" to 5'6". The skull is unusually large, with a pronounced brow ridge and thick cranial bones. While this could point to a man of great size, possibly a condition such as gigantism, scientists caution against jumping to that conclusion without further evidence. DNA testing has been proposed, but the region's hot climate and time span make genetic material hard to preserve. Radiocarbon dating and isotope analysis may reveal more about the individual's age, diet, and geographic origin. Until then, most of the claims remain speculative. Why this story captures attention. The tale of David and Goliath is more than just an ancient battle. It's a cultural symbol of courage, faith, and the triumph of the underdog. Stories of biblical archaeology often go viral because they touch on long-standing questions. Is the Bible historically accurate? Can its figures be traced to real places and people? This latest claim fits perfectly into that space between faith and evidence, offering just enough detail to stir excitement, but not enough to settle the debate. For some, even the possibility that Goliath's skull has been found is reason to celebrate. For others, it highlights the tension between belief and proof. These types of stories tap into our desire to connect past and present, myth and fact, and to find physical signs of narratives many have grown up hearing. Historical context. The biblical account places Goliath in the city of Gath, one of the 5 major cities of the Philistines. Archaeological work at Tel es-Safi over the last 2 decades has uncovered a fortified city with layers of destruction, Philistine pottery, and iron weapons, all consistent with the timeline of early Israelite conflict. Scholars have long debated whether Goliath was a literal person or a symbolic figure, possibly representing a warrior class or a real conflict. The biblical description of Goliath's armor and weaponry matches what archaeologists have recovered from similar Philistine sites, including heavy bronze gear and swords. The Book of Samuel also describes Goliath's height as, quote, 6 cubits and a span, which would place him at over 9 feet tall. Some ancient manuscripts give shorter estimates, closer to 6 feet 9 inches, which is still well above average for the time. The role of media. The spread of the story highlights how quickly sensational claims can take root, especially when tied to religion, history, and identity. Within days of the skull being found, social media posts labeled it Goliath's skull without qualification. News outlets rushed to cover the claim, some repeating unverified details from third-party sources. Archaeologists involved in the dig expressed frustration that their cautious language had been drowned out by exaggerated headlines. This isn't the first time biblical archaeology has been distorted by media attention. Stories about Noah's Ark, the Ark of the Covenant, and even Jesus' tomb have all been swept into cycles of viral speculation. Experts warn that overhyping discoveries can actually harm the field by undermining public trust. When evidence is thin, even well-meaning curiosity can fuel false narratives. The Goliath skull story, whether ultimately proven true or not, shows how modern media can both spark interest in ancient history and blur the line between evidence and enthusiasm. What comes next? As analysis continues, the remains have been moved to a secure facility for further study. Teams specializing in forensic anthropology, genetics, and ancient pathology are expected to review the skull in detail. If viable DNA can be recovered, it could help determine the individual's origins and even point to potential health conditions that explain the abnormal size. Meanwhile, excavation at the site will resume in future dig seasons with hopes of finding more context, artifacts, burial items, or inscriptions that might offer better clues. Whatever the final verdict, the discovery has already sparked renewed interest in the region's history. Museums, universities, and religious institutions are watching closely. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think there was a real Goliath? Let us know in the comments section below.